There's one more example of sort of intimate playing by Stéphan Lemelin for his barcarolle number 4 in A flat major. Pianist Stéphan Lemelin, well known to audiences throughout Canada for sure, but also in the States, in Europe, all over Asia. He tours and performs with some of the greatest orchestras in Europe. He's got a very vast repertoire of music as well, and many albums on his own with Atma as well, with a group called the Trio Hachalaga. Prize winner of the Robert Casadeas International Competition in Cleveland, and he's received many national and international awards and grants. And he's in town this weekend. Well, not just this weekend. Instead, starting tomorrow, he's in town now. Obviously, he is, or he wouldn't be here. He's in town for the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival, which begins tomorrow and runs all the way till June 12th. It is a feast of great chamber music, and he's in the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Classic 107 Studios.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And you've been in town a number of times before. It's been a few years since you've performed with the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival. Maybe start out by telling us what your association is with this festival and how it all came about that you were playing with them.
Well, I've been here many times. I've been at the festival many times over the years. I think this must be, I don't know which season this is, probably 15. It might be the 14, 15 years ago that the festival has been around. And at the time, it was started by Paul Marlene, of course, who is still the artistic director, and another colleague who at the time was at the University of Manitoba, David Stewart, violinist. And I was then teaching at the University of Alberta. So I was in Western Canada. I knew David, and so I was here on the very first edition of Agassiz, and then of course Paul has remained here, and I've collaborated with him in many times over the years, and eventually Paul and I became colleagues at the University of Ottawa. And we were part of a trio together, Trio Schlager, for a number of years. So anyway, so I've had a strong connection to this festival for many years. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you used to teach in Alberta, and you spent 13 years teaching in Ottawa as well. Now you're back in Montreal, back in Quebec, where you grew up and you were born. I want to talk a bit about your teaching. It obviously is a really big part of what you do and who you are, of course, performing and recording. When you're teaching, and I guess over the years as you've been teaching, what are some of the things that you try to pass on to your students other than, the formalities of the playing and the importance of the playing? What other things are important to you when you teach?
Well, there's so many things, of course. I think one of the things that you try to pass on, of course, is an attitude and an approach to music making. I feel very strongly that people play as they are. And that making music is really about being oneself, and it is really about expressing oneself. And it's a never-ending quest. It's a lifelong quest, really, for sort of gaining freedom in expressing ourselves and trying to get to the essence of what it is that matters to us as people. And to communicate that in our music. So I think I don't think that one can teach this or impart this in a short period of time. But I think maybe if one can help a student embark upon a journey this lifelong journey of through music and through sort of examined life to kind of learn to really come to the essence of what matters. I mean, that's I think what we all want to do ultimately.
Now, is this something that obviously you've worked through all of these things as well on your own, this personal freedom and expression. Was there one teacher in particular that you had that imparted that for you or that helped you get on your journey? Well,
as I say, it's definitely a lifelong process, and there's so many influences and there's so many people, and it's not obviously only one teacher that does that. But for me, clearly, I think the most influential figure in my musical past was Leon Fleischer. He was my teacher at Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, where I did my undergraduate and master's degree long time ago.
Just a couple years.
Yes, a long time ago. I knew. I grew up in a small town in eastern Quebec, and my connection to the musical world in those years was really mostly through recordings. I mean, there were not a lot of concerts where I lived, and certainly, no great artists came through town on a regular basis in the really quite small town. But I had some recordings, and I got to know the recordings of Fleischer when I was 12, 13. Beethoven concertos, Brahms concerti, Schumann, Grieg, all of that. And I was always not knowing who he was. I mean, for me, it was just a name, but I was totally drawn to the playing and to the authenticity of the playing. And I always thought, if this person teaches somewhere someday, that's who I'd like to study with. And I was lucky enough to be able to work with him for 4 years. And certainly that's the kind of relationship that it's an influence that stays with you for your entire life. I mean, that's, yeah.
I'm in the studio with Stéphan Lemelin, a pianist back in Quebec, and he's in town to perform many different works with the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival, which gets underway tomorrow here in the city. Now, you've often been identified in the last number of years, when I look at your ATMA recordings, and with the French repertoire. Now, the interesting thing I find about looking at this program is it's kind of far away from the French repertoire. When I look at it, and we were just given the list of things you're performing, there's Bartók, Stravinsky, there's Mahler, there's Strauss, there's everything but French music. So tell me about some of the pieces you'll be playing over the course of this weekend.
Well, it's a very, very varied list of pieces, and it's all wonderful stuff. I love French music, of course, but and in my recordings, I mean, I've been drawn, and for a number of reasons, to record that music. But of course, I love everything else as well. Mm-hmm. The piece on the opening concert, of course, is one of the great. The piece that I'm playing on the opening concert is one of the great works of the chamber literature. The Brahms G minor quartet. It's Brahms chamber music is some of the most satisfying music there is to play. Brahms knew how to write so well for each instrument, and knew how to write music where each part truly communicates with each other. In such a very satisfying way that it's always great fun to play this. And then, of course, I'm very happy to be playing again with Jim Campbell, great clarinetist, fantastic clarinetist. And it's actually interesting. We're playing a number of things. We're playing the Bartók Contrast, the Stravinsky Soldier's Tale. And we're also playing a Brahms Sonata. And I was thinking the other day as I was practicing it that Jim and I go back a long way on this piece because my first experience in chamber music was when I was, I think 14, participating in a program in Niagara-on-the-Lake in Ontario, a chamber music program for a few Canadians that had been selected across the country. And Jim was part at the time of a group called Camerata, which was a chamber music group, and they were the coaches for these students. I mean, they were maybe 10 years older, or not even that. They were just a few years older than the students. Mm-hmm. But my first experience of the Brahms E-flat clarinet sonata was being coached by Jim 40 years ago.
Wow,
that's so it's quite something. And we've played it. I mean, we've played it together. We've played together many times over the years.
I don't think I realized you went that far back. I was looking at. I know you've got. There's a recording of you guys with Gene DeNovi. It's called After Hours. I remember. I've seen that one before. Right. I didn't realize you went back 40 years. That's interesting.
That's when I first met him, and Jim is just a few years older than me, really. But he was a part of this group that started this chamber music program in Niagara-on-the-Lake in the mid-'70s. And anyway, so it's great to
I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean you're performing with him here a few times, and you guys I didn't realize you went that far back. So it'll be interesting, because it's almost like a coming home of sorts in a way. I mean, with Jim and with Paul and as you say, with the with the Agassiz Chamber Music Festival, and it's great. It's nice to have you back. And as I say, it looks like you're busy just about every day. You've got one day off. I noticed the June 7th, I think, is a day off, but you're going to be pretty busy almost every day performing. And
that's right. I'm not playing on Sunday night. Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I thought I was playing every night, so that's actually very nice to know that. Okay, I have one day to
that's right.
to keep up with the practicing of all this repertoire.
That's the thing. The challenge is, I mean, there's such a diverse repertoire to be able to you don't get a lot of rehearsal time, and you just you're just kind of thrown into it in a sense, right? And it speaks to the ability of yourself and the performers that are involved that you can do that.
Well, it's one of the really great things about events like this is that there's such a camaraderie, such a good such a spirit of collaboration and friendship among people playing. I mean, we have a very good time, and it's very different from going to play a concert to just an isolated individual event where you have a program and you go and you play your concert, and you very often don't get to interact very much with the people who've organized the event or with anybody in the community, and you leave after the concert. It's a very different kind of experience to be in a festival like this, where for a week you go out for lunch and dinner and beers after concerts with musicians on a daily basis for a week, and it's really wonderful. Yeah.
Great. Stéphan Lemelin is in town. Thank you very much for coming in. Party begins tomorrow. I mean, the concerts begin tomorrow. Party might even begin tonight. I don't know. It's Agassiz Chamber Music Festival. Starts tomorrow, runs all the way through June 12th. It's a week or 6 days of amazing chamber festival concerts. And, very happy to have you in the studio with me today. Thank you for coming in. And I think we're having Jim. Maybe he's coming in on Tuesday morning as well. So I look forward to chatting with him, and have a great time.
Thank you.
Enjoy your time in Winnipeg.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I've got something lined up by a group, Trio Hochelaga, and it features both Stefan and Paul here, and it's Dubois Piano Quintet.